Hello, sweetie. So, here we are, time for a Big Finish review, and this one was a box set. This is the third box set I've done now, because I did Fourth Doctor Adventures, I think it was second season of that I did, although I haven't finished with that review, because I've got another part of that I have to cover. But I did the War Doctor, and now the Diary of River Song, very wonderfully sent to me by a supporter, sent to my P.O. box, so that was awesome. But yeah, so this was one that I knew of. I actually didn't know much of anything about the episode in terms of whether or not people, the box set, in terms of whether or not people liked it. The impression I got was a little bit mixed, and having now heard it, if that is the case, I can see why. Now, a little bit first. I want to be clear, I actually quite like River Song as a character in general. I know not everybody does. She's divisive sometimes. I think some people feel that she is exemplary of a lot of Moffat's not great writing instincts in some of the directions he took things in. But I've always enjoyed her as a character, and I think Alex Kingston plays her very well. That being said, it was very clear in listening to this that, at least at the time of recording for this box set, she wasn't quite used to working in audio as opposed to visually. Because this hadn't occurred to me in advance, but it definitely hit me while I was listening that a lot of what works about her in episodes is sold on basically the eyes, like the little look she gives, the glances, the grins, the smiles. And when she doesn't have that, I can hear that she's like overcompensating in her voice and her vocal delivery to try and bring that stuff across, knowing that people can't see her. And while they're not terrible performances, she is kind of being outclassed by a number of her co-stars at various points throughout the whole thing. And it's the kind of thing where I just kind of presume she'd get better with practice. So, I mean, I know there have been like, what, 6 or 7 series of this thing so far. So I suspect that she's probably much better later on. But in this one, it's really kind of iffy. And then, you know, there's the stories themselves. So there's the first one, which is The Boundless Sea. And it's the weakest one of the lot. It has a lot of, it reminds me more than a little bit of the Sands of Life, War with the Land thing from the Fourth Doctor box set, because it very much, as soon as it sets things up, it's just a whole bunch of running and characters shouting, and that just isn't the kind of storytelling that audio is cut out for. And actually, that's something that's going to come up a little bit repeatedly as I talk about the 4 parts of this thing. But anyway, the setup for the first one is that it is set sort of early 1900s, you know, when, you know, the big archaeological digs were happening, Tutankhamun got uncovered and things like that. So, River Song, who is a professor at this point, is hiding out at a university on Earth. She heads to an excavation where a young assistant has gone missing, and she goes in to try and find out what has gone on, and she encounters basically a nanite swarm and a revived mummy kind of character. So the setup is fair enough, all things considered, but like I said, as soon as we establish that what technology brought this mummy back and that it seeks out any moisture at all, whether it's, you know, whether it's just water or whether it is, you know, people's sweat or tears or whatever, then from there it's just a whole bunch of running and shouting until it's defeated. And it's just not especially well written. The co-stars are okay. There's a character named Birdie who she gets teamed with, who I actually rather liked in this. Although things get weird around him in some of the later stories, and I'll get to that in a minute. So the next one is called I Went to a Lovely Party, which, first of all, I like the starting setup and premise, which is River shows up on this ongoing party on a ship that has been going on for years, that people just kind of drop in and out of as they will, which, first of all, immediately reminded me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think it was the third book. I think it was Life of the Universe and Everything that had the party that never ended. So it reminded me a little bit of that. But then it kind of mashes up two ideas, which, I mean, I suppose is better than taking an idea that doesn't work in audio and stretching it out for a full hour like the previous one did. But the thing is that these two ideas don't quite build on each other properly. So first we have kind of a locked door mystery kind of thing, because we're at this party, it's really hard to get in and out of, and somebody has died. And so we've got a mystery element. And then in addition to that, River uncovers that the sorts of people who come to this party, the rich, the powerful, the influential, they fancy themselves the rulers of the universe, and they actually deliberately and artificially tweak and manipulate civilizations that are below a certain technology level in order to, quote unquote, steer them in the right direction. And neither of these are bad ideas, but they don't inherently complement each other, and the story doesn't do a ton to interweave them. Now, I mentioned Birdie in the last one. In this one, he comes back because it turns out he's actually one of the members of the rulers of the universe. And it's really weird. I mean, I guess they did it to like create some kind of a through line between the previous one and this one. I don't think it helps, though, because that's the only thing that connects. And honestly, he doesn't add anything, and the way he behaves is so completely different from the way he behaved last time, explained with like he was being in character previously, and now he's just him as he normally is. But it creates a disconnect that is just, was it even worth having this be the same guy? I'm not sure it brings anything or adds anything to it. Again, that might have worked better in a visual medium where at least, you'd be getting a different performance, but you'd still be seeing the same person. Without that, it just comes across as, was there any reason for this to be the same guy as before? As far as the answers to the solutions and things like that, it's not the most interesting in the world, but then again, it is only an hour, so the mystery was only going to be so complicated. And River is fairly clever in the way she decides to deal with this. Now, at the very end, she encounters a man who presents himself to her as her husband. Now, kind of an interesting thing happened at this point, which is that I just went ahead and popped in the next CD, but didn't bother to look at the cover, because if I had, the cover of the next one called Signs, all right, there he is. That's the gentleman who is claiming to be her husband and is calling himself the Doctor. And that's no Doctor we've ever seen. The thing is, I popped it in without looking at the cover, so I didn't realize this. And I don't know if the guy actually flat out sounds like Paul McGann, or if I just projected that onto him because Paul McGann's on like the cover proper of the whole box set, but I actually did think that this was McGann for a while, which is probably unintended given, that this other guy's face is on the box, but I actually think gave me a better listening experience, that the reveal that this was not the Doctor was probably more of a surprise to me than it was actually meant to be. Now, as far as this episode goes, Signs, it is the one that comes the closest to doing the sorts of things that work best in audio and that Big Finish is good at, in that it is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more intricate. It is sort of playing with some bigger concepts, the sort of things that would be really hard to, or really expensive to do visually. And not just because, like, oh, big explosion, just because these are the sorts of things that, like, you can see it in your head probably a lot easier than it would be to visualize it. So it works pretty well on that front, but at the same time, it still feels like it was written in a way that would have benefited more from a visual standpoint. What I mean by that is that has more to do with the way the story is structured. So the way Signs works is a River and this fake Doctor. I think official media has him just labeled as Mr. Song. So the two of them are going after what are called the spore ships, which are these things that nobody knows where they came from. They've been around for ages. They just go to planets and wipe them out. No one has figured out the pattern, how to stop them, what the deal is, and they're trying to do that. So at the start, and I say start, I mean the start of the audio, not the chronological start of the story, which is kind of where I'm getting. But at the start, River has disabled something, but she has taken a massive dose of radiation, so she spends pretty much the entire story dying. And So she's in a disabled state. She's having wonky dreams. We're getting flashbacks. Parts of it are told out of order. And it is difficult to follow as a result of that because, and again, it's the sort of things where if this was being told in visual medium, when you go to something like a flashback or a dream, it would be very easy to have easy visual signifiers, even if it's just a sepia tone, you know, over something to distinguish it from what was just going on and what just happened. And without the easy visual cues that we've shifted into a dream or into a flashback or back to the quote-unquote present, it doesn't flow particularly smoothly, and I did spend a decent chunk of it going, wait, what's going on? But not in an intrigued, I can't wait to find out way, in a, wait a minute, slow down, I need notes sort of way. So that unfortunately derailed it a little bit, which is a shame because I actually really like the core concept of this one. It's probably the best idea, even though the execution falls down a bit. I mean, overall, it's probably still the best episode of the box set, but even this one doesn't fully come together for me. Some of the ideas at the end, and this is going to start to get a little bit more into proper spoilers if you haven't heard the thing. Well, you know what? I think I can do without bringing it up. So some of the specifics for exactly how this guy is manipulating her, beyond just claiming to be the doctor, are kind of interesting and creepy and a little unsettling in a cool sci-fi kind of way. And I like the idea, and I like the way that was played out, and it felt like it justified River's anger. And that was another thing that was kind of nice. For as much as I kind of ragged on Alex Kingston's performance and like feeling like she's not used to working in audio, it is nice to hear River separate from the doctor, so I get a better sense of her when she's not just playing off of him. And you know, the little reminders that she is more ruthless. She does not have the same problem taking lives. She's not always interested in saving everybody if she can, and you know, getting that sort of sense of coldness that she has when dealing with basically anybody who isn't the doctor. And that was kind of cool to see on more full proper display here, since you know, she's not playing off of him for a good chunk of this thing. Now we get into the last one, which is called, I have now suddenly forgotten it, the last one is The Rulers of the Universe. Now this one, it's the finale. It serves as to try and bring everything together. And this is the one where Paul McGann actually shows up. And it's very much continuing directly off the one previous. We're still dealing with the spore ships. Plus, as the name implies, we are also dealing with the remnants of the Rulers of the Universe and that plot line from I Went to a Lovely Party. Now, while first of all, McGann gives a great performance. He always does, because he's been doing this a while. He's really good at it. And there is, unfortunately, there's a narratively necessitated detachment between River and the Doctor, which is, unfortunately, this is kind of, and even though Moffat himself didn't write any of these, this is sort of an upshot of how Moffat was a little too clever for his own good when it came to River, in that some of the things that he established really hamstrings what stories can be told, because we established that the Doctor does not know River properly until Tennant. So anytime you have her interacting with any doctor that isn't Tennant, there's two things that can't happen. They can't know her name, and they can't see her, because otherwise Tennant would have recognized her in Silence in the Library, and that doesn't work in terms of the continuity. So because of that, even though the two of them do, you know, they have dialogue together, but they're never physically in the same space. And while their banter is pretty good, it does feel like a little bit of you know, the story in and of itself would have benefited from going to heck with continuity. Let's just have these two together and have a lot of fun. But because it is trying to maintain the continuity, it can't actually do that. And it is one of those times where I think continuity is a wonderful thing when it works, and sometimes it gives you a lot of possibilities, but other times it can really kneecap a story and cut it off at the legs in terms of where you can go and what you can do, because it limits your options. And this is a case where I think that bit it in the butt a little bit. But again, it's pretty good. If I were to rank these overall, Signs will go at the top, even though the actual sort of order that things happen in is a little bit clunky, and the transitions are. And then after that, I would probably put Rulers of the Universe, and then I Went to a Lovely Party, and then Boundless Sea at the bottom. And that's by a pretty decent margin. Boundless Sea, like, I never want to listen to again. The others I would listen to again. Oh, and the other thing I'll point out, I don't really like her theme that they came up with. It's very much trying for, like, whoosh, crikey, swashbuckling, hey, kind of adventure kind of thing. So I get the vibe they're going for, but it's just a little too bombastic. Like, I'd have to turn the volume down when the theme kicked in, because it was really loud and really insistent on itself, and I didn't much care for it. Which is a shame, because some of these alternate themes can work very well. The War Masters theme was brilliant, but I talked about that when I did that review. So I think I'll wrap up there. I think I got through most of that without spoiling some of the few things that I think are worth keeping a surprise. And, yeah, Diary of River Song Series 1. It's not bad. I'm certainly not, I'm glad it was sent to me. I'm certainly glad that I listened to it. I'm kind of glad that I personally didn't pay money for it. So, but what I will say is that it does make me curious to hear a later series of it. Whether it's the immediate next one or one of the ones from down the line. I don't know if the story is ongoing across the series, if you have to listen to them in order or not. But, like, I would be very curious to hear how this plays out once Alex Kingston kind of has her feet under a little bit better and is playing better in this sort of medium. Because I think it has enough potential that I want to see it. I want to see it happen again and have them do better, which, given how many series they are on so far, I'm going to assume that they did. But for right now, this is all I've heard, so this is all I'm talking about. So, The Diary of River Song, have you heard it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff you can do, because there's buttons and links, including one to the Patreon. There's the P.O. Box that I mentioned. That address is down there, too. Check it out if you want other stuff besides, but if you don't want to, that is okay, because at the end of the day, you are the council, and I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.